Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and Johannes Languth, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
Welcome everybody. My name is Alexander Greb and you're listening to Transformation Every Day, expert insights and stories on SAP and beyond. When we talk about SAP transformations, the conversation starts the same way many times. Brownfield or Greenfield, Big Bang or step by step. And while we are busy debating these questions, many programs quietly drift off track. They take longer than planned, cost more than expected, and definitely don't deliver fast value, if any value at all. So somewhere along the way, they got lost. In this episode, I'm speaking with Oliver Dorsner, Consulting Director and member of the Executive Board at Corporate Business Solutions. He has spent more than 25 years in large-scale transformation programs. He has seen what works, what does not, and why so many initiatives struggle to turn ambition into real results. What makes this perspective interesting is that he looks beyond the usual labels, because transformation is not just a technical decision, it is all about processes, data, and above all, people and culture. We talk why there is no such thing as a pure greenfield transformation, why companies often underestimate the complexity of change, and how our entire programs end up stretching far beyond what makes sense. And more importantly, what you can do when you realize you are already in that situation. So if you are in the middle of a transformation journey or about to start one, this episode is for you. Welcome to Transformation Every Day. This is Oliver Dorsner. When you talk about that kind of, let's say, going from brown to green, like bringing more and more new stuff into that, and you use this as a scale, for example, is there a certain point starting from brown to green where you say like, okay, now for me, something starts, which I would call a transformation? Or are you more from a mindset wise that you say like, hey, everything is a transformation, even if it's just like an IT topic, if it's just a brownfield? Is this something which starts from you right at the beginning on the left side, on the brown side, or do you see the, let's say, the transformation spirit happening more on the selective or on the green side?
The easy answer is everything is a transformation. But looking more into this brown and green dimensions, I always see two layers of it, two dimensions. The one is the application perspective, so talking about SAP and the question on how do you bring one or different ECCs, SAP ECCs or other legacy systems to one S4. And the other one is the business content, so the process and data perspective. From the application perspective, you have to do a decision one time in future where you really think about, okay, should I start with a real green new application? Or do I use kind of a shell copy of the current one, change it? Or will I really go to the what we call bloody brown direction? Bloody brown means a conversion upgrade project. So this is a decision you have to take once, and this is quite digital. It's either or.
Basically,
the other perspective is on the process and on the data. So, and I do not see pure greenfield projects on a data and process perspective. And the reason is quite easy. It will never ever happen in time that a company will really redefine what they're doing on a process level, what they're doing in a data level at one time in future and bring this in one shot or in different shots then to a new application world. This won't happen. So this is always a mixture of brown topics, green topics, or some things in between.
So you say that there is always something there already when you start. You can go green as far as you want, but at least in your mindset, there are processes existing, there are data existing, and so also something you generally set up.
For sure.
Definitely. And this shows quite already what's today's topic, because for today's episode, we welcome Oliver Dorsner. practice head transformation management at CBS, and definitely somebody who has to do or had to do a lot of work in the last 25 years, taking care for the big transformations. And this is our topic for today. Great to have you, Oliver. Really stoked to have you here. Your first podcast, as far as I've heard.
It's not the real first one, but I'm not the podcaster that much. First of all, Alex, thanks for having me. It's quite an honor. I think it's an established format. A lot of important persons giving inputs, insights to their thoughts, and honored to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So we have some of an exclusivity tag today. Let's start talking about yourself. You, for your whole professional life, you've done projects, programs, transformations, and so on. How did you start into that? Since it's not really normal that somebody says at the end of his studies or university, hey, I'm going to do transformations. I think that's really not anybody's dream in the beginning. How did you come into that space?
The first step wasn't quite easy one. Started after university with an idea. I like to work for companies that are active on a global scale. And I had a background in informatics as well as process, logistics and controlling. And for me, I didn't want to be purely in software coding and informatics topics, but I was looking for a combination of both. So talking about processes end to end, bringing really impacts to companies on a global scale. Traveling is one of my favorite hobbies. And this at the end made my way to CBS, going to a consultant company that is combining both. So the process consulting and the application consulting topic. And this is how I started. And I started really on the base. I learned what I'm doing from the base, started as a consultant, functional consultant. Also did some technical stuff, so some coding, software topics. And then went more and more to project management, program management activities. And this is how I entered into these transformation topics. And by going into this program, by developing yourself into new roles, by getting more and more contacts also to upper management at the end C-level, you really figure out what you could bring as impact to companies, going as a more C-level consultant there. And at the end, this is how at the start I was starting functionally, and this helped me then, and now is helping me still, talking to C-level management. Just based on what you are bringing in as knowledge, as understanding for companies from a functional perspective, process perspective, and also from a cultural organizational perspective.
Looking into the development, the personal development that you were talking about, what would be the typical early beliefs that didn't survive the reality of when you develop? Because for my example, when I look back, and I really wanted to go into projects because I thought, let's say, okay, you have a start and you have an ending, and then something new starts. But I quickly realized that there always is something happening before and there's something happening behind that. So you never really have these kinds of hard cuts in the beginning and in the end. What were your big surprises in the end?
I think there's only one big one, the lasting until today. My early belief was, if I am myself ambitious enough and the project team is, we could change the whole world of companies in a snapshot. And a snapshot for sure is a project that lasts for 1 month or sometimes or some years. But my belief was, if you bring an energy, if you have good arguments, you really could change processes. Nowadays, we would talk about Greenfield, end to end, over the whole process landscape of companies. This was my early belief. I learned, but this probably is your follow-up question, that this belief was kind of not completely wrong or faulty, because the ambition is good, but it's just not realistic.
Was this frustrating in a certain way? Yeah, that you say like, okay, maybe we cannot save the world with one transformational project. But it has to be, let's say, steps, or it has to be levels, or is it just, let's say, more pragmatic approach to that?
It was not really frustrating, but it clarified a lot for myself how far my impact could be being a consultant in companies, because you could not save the whole world in a day. This is just not possible. But having learned that, it even went better, because you could, as consultant, act more clearly, transparently towards companies and C-level management. What are the real potentials and values that you could lever at the end with the project? And what are the topics that you should just, at least for the moment, leave behind and take care for them at a later stage?
Hi there. Quick break for a short message before we go right back to the episode. Enjoying the insights and stories on transformation every day? Want to make sure you never miss an episode packed with practical tips and best practices from the SAP world, featuring conversations with some of the most interesting people in the SAP universe? Then hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform, whether it is Apple, Spotify, or any other you use. And if our podcast brings you value, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us. Thanks so much, and happy listening. Does this also play into that you realize that companies, of course, have, let's say, similar transformation capabilities embedded in them? Some are more open to quick change into the big steps. Some are a little bit more reluctant, have to be probably a little bit more motivated. Is this something you comply with in your experience? And which kind of, let's say, effect something like technology has into that? Is this sometimes the stimulus that companies need to move? Or do you say, let's say, this is something that can help, but the real change comes from more the organization with him and how you work with the people than from a technological step from outside?
Well, long question. Try to get a simple answer of that. So my view on that is good technology is offering opportunities to change. For example, this whole S4 wave that is running since more than 10 years, started in 2015. I'm working with it, and that since 2015 is bringing a lot of opportunities to companies, what they could change. And going into that S4 story a bit more, SAP didn't reinvent the world and the whole software with the first release, but SAP managed to trigger processes or trigger changes in companies, and these changes at the end led to process optimizations, led to a better maintenance of the software itself for the support teams, even for topics that haven't changed or didn't change at all, comparing ECC to S4. And just by the fact that companies or that customers are thinking more about their usage and their ambition using SAP. This is the technology perspective. And the technology perspective, again, repeating, for me, it's only the technology only delivers opportunities to do it. As the same topic now with AI, opportunities to improve. At the end, the opportunities need to be consumed by people, by organizations, and need to be and new solutions need to be leveraged by people. And different project situations. The one is you do have same management in companies since 15 years. And sometimes we are wondering that we are starting greenfield process discussions from starting best practices. And at the end, the solution is the same as they are having today. Now wonder why. Why should people change processes if they're doing the same things, even on management levels in 20 years? So a lot of them are or a lot of the contacts are not then open to redefine things really for new. So this is the one perspective. And the second thing I'm learning still for new is how strong company cultures are and how difficult it is sometimes to break the cultures, to change the cultures. And I do have one really impressive experience in one company I'm working with since nearly 20. I did a project there as project manager that time in 2008. And now I do have another role in this company, more as a steering member. The whole people, or 80% of the people, changed since that time. So I was young, I'm older now. A lot of my contacts that time, 2008, have been already experienced people. So they are out of the company. The organization changed, but the culture remained. So things that I wanted to achieve in 2008 from a project ambition are still open and are still not, or we are not managing to achieve them because the culture doesn't allow it. So, and this is another perspective. So one is the people, the organization, and the readiness and the willingness to change. And the other thing is the cultural guardrails that the company is delivering. And a lot of new people that are working for companies, customer companies, are just adapting to this culture, and the end, again, sometimes hindering to leverage new processes or new technologies, even if it would make sense looking from an outside in perspective.
That's quite an interesting point, because it's what also I saw in the past quite often, that organizational culture is so strong that they tend to assimilate the people that are moving into them. Yeah. So sometimes it's easier for the system to change you than for you to change the system in a certain way. But also one aspect is of course when you have, let's say, upper management who treat transformation as that's that kind of IT thing. Yeah, SAP, it's part of the IT stuff. Leave me alone with that. IT, please get that thing done with your SAP partner. And then they step forward, say like, okay, we implemented SAP, so we have transformed. And this, like you said, is something which only happens, or this can change if new people may step in, coming from a completely different background and bringing their input in and their demands. Do you see this kind of attitude towards SAP transformations from an upper level perspective has been changed in the last years, from being more of an IT topic towards it's an organizational and strategic topic now?
So there's at least a tendency that from a business perspective and upper management perspective, the organizations that are responsible really see a chance to change. And I perceive an easy derivation of that one. So changing organizations, processes is supported if the changes are embedded in a kind of software or in a kind of a software process that you are at the using. So the SAP as a software, or SAP as software, or other applications as well, are kind of giving guardrails to new processes, to new ways of managing customers, to new ways of managing suppliers, and so on. So at the end, conclusion would be the applications, standard software applications, are enablers to change companies, to change processes, probably also to change some cultural aspects. They're only enablers. The changes are always coming from people at the end, upper management or whomever.
If you would see somebody and experience somebody, like let's say a first conversation about a transformation, and you feel that, okay, upper management here is very, very strict in that way. Like we talk now, but the transformation itself is part of the IT, and you just talk with the CIO and not with us. Would you then accept this, and pragmatically then move forward, or would you at first try, let's say, to get more buy-in from the business side at that moment before you start, because you say like, hey, this is really relevant success factor in that way?
No. It's not a kind of a digital I would accept or I won't accept. I will accept or I accept. For me, it's rather an either or discussion that we are starting. So if I see that a CIO is heading out for a transformation project and need to have some values also in the hand towards the upper management, and is nevertheless not willing to address business with capacity requirements or in governance organization, I try to be quite transparent to this person what the values could be and what in this situation the company could achieve by starting or finishing then an S4 transformation. And it's quite clear if you start a project or managing a project only with IT people, you won't be able to change business processes at all. Values are more embedded than in application, data footprint, and so on topics. And this is the either and or. The other way, if of course see people and the willingness to contact upper management, this is the preferred way to go. Because the transformation always is a bigger, complex project. People need to move and a lot of things need to be done, like testing and so on and so forth, and sometimes a bit independent from the value generation that you're reaching in the project. And of course, if we could kind of raise the values that we are generating in the project, it would make sense. So I would always prefer to go to upper management, to start a project via upper management, and this would be the preferred way to go. But if an organization isn't capable or willing to do, I would go, of course, the other way and figuring out what we could leverage or lever via IT then.
Do you think, let's say, the values, the KPI improvements, whatever, so let's say the contribution of the software that, for example, a company like SAP is delivering is for, let's say, reluctant business departments, in all cases, easily translatable? We can say like, look, if you do it like that and so on, you will get an output business-wise, which is A, B, C, D, E. Or do you think this is still far too technical? It's still far about TCOs. It's still far too much about, let's say, technical things that cannot really be translated into SAP, into the business language, so that in the end, it's still too much of an IT initiative in its core than it could be if it would be, let's say, easier to digest it.
So if business is reluctant, this was a question, is it easy to translate the benefits of SAP to them? It's always possible to translate values. This is the first answer to that one. Why? It's always a question on the size of the values or the at the end, the size of the values. Two examples for that one. If we go with Signavio and if we do a process analysis, for example, in the procurement area, and in this analysis, we're figuring out that the supplier contact are changing or is changing the procurement, the order, the PO 7 times for a pricing perspective before it's sent out to the supplier. It's easy to generate a value. Most of the times, this tends to be a master data topic. So if we align master data, the 7 loops are lowered to probably 2 of them. And this is value generation by itself. So we are wiping out kind of 5 loops and we are saving time before a PO after generation is handed over to the supplier. This is not hard to explain to a business person. So the value then it's easy to show the value on this perspective, and the reluctancy will go away. Second example to that one, there are some AI tools, also some that we are offering in the market, like the CBS 8, and all demo cases are at the end leading to some activities at the customer side, because this is just value that we are generating with the CBS 8. And it's easy to have the business buy-in there. Those are the easy value cases, but they are also kind of limited. And the second thing is the big value cases are often coming really from end-to-end process changes, harmonization of processes in companies between different divisions or subsidiaries, or bringing then SAP back to standard also on a global scale. Those are the cases that embed more value, higher value cases. And there it is more difficult to get a reluctant business, or to get the reluctant business responsibles into the case, because the changes are just on an end-to-end scale. Organizations probably need to change and responsibilities will change. And this is just a harder case on that one.
When companies start with a transformation or with an SAP implementation, the starting points are, of course, quite individual, and you probably never have twice the same starting points when you go. Some do have like a merger or acquisition as a starting point, so they need a unified system. Others say like, oh, we have to do something because SAP is quitting maintenance in a few years, so we have to move now to a new topic. Others see big disruptions in their business, so they have to do something. So in the end, everybody is individual in their situations. But before the transformation, the questions that companies should ask themselves before they start, do you think they are as individual too? Or is there something where you say like, hey, if you ask yourself in that state that you are, these kinds of 3 to 4 to 5 questions, then you are in a good chance that you come out in the end with something that makes you actually better?
So this is a difficult question, by the way. The cases are always individual, for sure. And all depends on the base situation the companies are in, and at the end, the ambition the companies want to achieve by starting a transformation project. So this is also why we need to align, and we need to tackle every case individually. Of course, by a method that we standardized. Then the questions in the cases are similar most of the times. But the important thing is to figure out, to derive the key objectives that companies want to achieve with the transformation, and then to derive the right approach from these key objectives. At the end for the transformation project, to make this successful and to make this happen also successfully.
Is this importance of defining together the right approach? Isn't this something which is sometimes, maybe often, maybe not so often, being a little bit undermined by, for example, the need for so many companies to do RFPs, because if you have as a first step, you have the urge, then of course you have to do the RFPs. And you have a lot of consulting partners who have maybe different approaches to a topic. Some are more investing into that phase in the beginning because they are aware of that importance. Others, they just want to do, let's say, a quick migration, and basically that's it. Is this something which makes asking the right questions at a certain state in their transformation more difficult? Or do you say like, okay, even if an RFP is coming and we may not agree with the concept that is presented in the RFP, we still have enough possibilities to steer the topic or influence the topic in a direction where we are convinced the probability of value is higher than what may have been presented in the RFP?
So I will drop a number. So at least 80% of the RFPs that we answer do not show the solution the customers initially wanted to have. or we're asking for. And then this is where our work already starts. So starting or seeing an RFP, we try to figure out this again, repeating the key objectives, the drivers in the companies, and we try to figure out where value potentials could be in the companies. And then we start already during the RFP process, we start to make up our own picture and our own transformation strategy or CBS transformation strategy story for the customer companies. And then quite easily, we are answering with the solution approach that we are convinced that the customers get the best value out. And this is at the end, the success factor, how we hopefully bring impact to all customer companies. And at least it is a success factor to win the RFPs and to be the consulting company of choice for the customer companies.
When customer or management on the client side does a decision concerning an approach, of course, this is most of the times influenced by past experiences. I quite well remember a customer once greeting me with the word, let's say like, my name is XY, I'm a Brownfield customer. And that was the first time he talked with SAP with us back then about this topic. They already had their mindset like, okay, this is a topic, this has to be a brownfield. And when I asked him why he thinks like that, or why he talks like that, and why he identifies himself like that, he immediately came with that story from like, hey, 8, 9, 10 years ago, we when we did our ECC implementation, it was such a long and exhausting thing and so on. We cannot do this again. We have to do this much slimmer and so on, much smaller, not knowing that methods have changed, tools have changed, and so on. How often do you experience a similar situation? Like, let's say, like personal experiences from the past influence a decision, which may, from your perspective, not the best one for the client. And what kind of, let's say, methods do you have to convince a customer that, hey, faster value than it used to be like 15 years ago when we just did like for 2 years, faster value is now possible.
And taking to the question in two kind of time dimensions. The one situation is customers experience projects 15 years ago or with the R2, R3 change. The second one is customers started early in time, so 2016, 17 with S4, and did experience there, but did not yet finish the S4 transformation topic. So at the early customers, if there are rare examples where companies really addressing us, where we receive RFPs with this type of, we are Brownfield customers, we need to have something really easy, Brownfield conversion like. This is really happening. If we in those cases show new opportunities, possibilities, modern methods, and also tools to enable and support transformations, discussions are mostly eased up, and there's openness to really change and do a new experience and really reframe, looking from the experience that is 15 years old. And then we are coming to a good and modern project approach, what embeds within value and makes the transition or transformation successfully. Another topic, this is the second one. We do have quite some RFPs and customer demands where companies started entering the S4 journey in 2016, 17 or 2020 and figuring out now, okay, we did the first successful go live probably, or we did our first project, but looking into the future, if we continue like that, our transformation journey will last until 2035 and will cost triple the budget that we calculated initially. Those situations are happening quite often today. And those companies are really willing to change and do see a need to change just to speed up the transformation journey and at the end to also raise the value generation.
Would you prefer, or do you generally prefer, probably there is not generally, but more individually, but are you a friend of the big steps and the big jumps, or do you say like, hey, it's in most cases the better solution to cut the elephant into smaller pieces, do certain steps and so on, even though it may be the price that, let's say, the end-to-end sensation that you have by not changing everything at once may not be as big in the, let's say, after the first step than it may have been if you really did the big jump?
Now, Alex, guess what my answer would be? I'm a fan of both. But the everything. So at the end, both big steps and small steps, but also always depending on the topic. Big steps, in my perspective, make most sense for the technical changes. So for the technical, and if I talk technical, for the SAP transformation from ECC to S4. So taking the classical situations, companies worked a lot in consolidation of SAP systems or legacies into one SAP, and now trying to derive the good approach how to go to S4 and starting the first ideas and cutting again the ECC into pieces. And they worked beforehand 10 years to put it together. So this, in my opinion, makes not a lot of sense in 99% of the cases. So this would be for me always this big step discussion. So I would always recommend, if possible, and this is 99% of the cases, do this S4, the technical transformation, the transformation of ECC application to S4 in a big step. The second question is for the small steps. So if you do the big step, of course, you need to have an organization that is ready. You do have some greenish things. And the big question is then, how much change of processes end to end could the organization then really digest in a big step? And there are different project approaches, but the minimal invasive one is do the big step from the application perspective, but try to limit the changes from the processes as far as possible. And bringing it down to earth, then, if you do this S4 simplification item checks, if you run the custom code checks, you will figure out most of the companies, there's not too much change that you need to do. This then also enables the big step from a techno perspective, application perspective. If you just use the minimal amount of S4 application, S4 simplifications and custom code adoptions that you could do. But what's about value then? Most companies then, or CIOs then ask, hey, we do a big transformation project. We need to sell it to the business. How could we leverage values nevertheless? Because this minimal approach from a process change will not embed too much value for sure. And then this the solution or answer is quite easy. Values need to be generated then in smaller steps as pre-projects or as post-projects to the technical transformation. The thing is, of course, you need to sell it. You need to sell a transformation program that consists of different projects, and there are some value driver projects. Those are smaller most of the times. And there's this big technical change project from ECC to S4, and this should be then done in the one big step. And at the end, this would be the recommendation. We are often talking about kind of a plateau model, which is used often then to show it, to make this logic and the idea transparent, also then to board levels and so on. And this is what my preferred way to go forward is. One more thing to that, and if you do the small steps and the value driving things before and after, there's always the possibility to do it in chunks. So if you change a process in a current system, you could change it either, of course, again in a big bang, or you change it in chunks, entity by entity, country by country, division by division. What always allows you to do bigger steps from a process change perspective. everything you do in a big bang need to be changed globally at one point in time.
And then there's most of the cases no step back, because of course things can go wrong. And we've talked about that you here and there not so seldom come to or meet customers who are in a transformation. And you used a word which I really like, a wording. You said like who were lost in transformation. Yeah, who found themselves in, hey, we are doing something, and then at a certain point it's realized that they made something not be right. Either it's the wrong direction, some jump too far and are overwhelmed, some may jump not far enough to release any value at all. How do you experience these kinds of approaches? How does somebody know that a transformation could be considered lost, or he could be considered lost in transformation?
Loss in transformation is of course, a big bunch of topics when customers consider themselves as lost. The most transparent and easiest example is a tour guide 2 weeks ago, bigger company. They did a first transformation project. It took them 3 years, but they only transformed 20% of the company, of the subsidiaries, of the divisions, and they did a calculation, and this was the example I mentioned already beforehand. And the calculation showed transformation will last until 2035, and the budget will at least be triple. More with that, the business started to at the end blame that it makes no sense to run this project or program what is planned until 2035, because from a value perspective, they didn't at the end achieve what they were heading out for. So the classical lost in transformation thing. And the solution there need to be easy. So the project should be finished, or at least a technical transformation to S4 should be finished at latest 2030, ideally 2028 or 2029. And there's the trick to achieve that is try to manage the scope from a business perspective and bring this technical perspective in foreground, and manage the project that the whole company is on the new platform on S4, again in a consolidated environment, and then leverage value driving projects afterwards, post projects. And this is the second thing, and lost in transformation situations. When I get contact, a lot of companies are asking, boy, we did a big project, it was rather greenish, and it took us 5 years, and we really were trying to turn around, to redefine all processes for new. Now we figured out there's no value in. At the end, we failed. We failed in doing the processes for new, and we also failed in generating value by transformation. But management is nevertheless starting to ask for the values out of the transformation. This is also a loss and transformation topic, where we are then digging in and figuring out, okay, what have been the objectives at the start, and what did the project team or the whole company then lose during the project, and how could we, in a smart way, then leverage the values again after this transformation has been done in smaller projects, obviously. So those are the lost in transformation situations.
So in many cases, it's not all about making really a hard reset, but you can really make changes and improvements by also continuing to develop what's already there.
Exactly. And what I'm detecting a lot is if you compare, if you talk about template of processes, if you compare the template that has been achieved until start of IT1, so the first big end-to-end testing round, to the template version that companies are looking at the end of the user acceptance test, most of the times there are big deviations. And what are the deviations about? It's all about localization to processes that have been defined in the design and build phase, with a global idea, but haven't been accepted then in the user acceptance test. So, and this is then localization, process variants, things that have been forgotten.
Mhm.
And then, of course, user acceptance test was running, project already ran for some months or years, and a quick fix has been necessary to ensure go live. And those are those are things, and those are the arguments that killed value. And those are the things then to reestablish that need to be reestablished and after the project, the transformation project itself.
I really like the story that you've told there, because I remember myself being part of a big template project a long time ago at a German automotive OEM, which was set to go for around 12, 13 years. And of course, looking back and knowing that this template then has never been rolled out fully, because of course, disruptions came, economy changed, strategy changed, and so on. And especially that customer, I heard him saying lately that based on the template that was decided, then something like building electric cars or something would not have been possible at all. It makes clear that probably in the beginning, it should be an early warning site. If you are set up for a transformation or a template, which takes you with all the steps more than a decade, is probably not such a good idea. But are there any other, let's say, early warning sites that you say, look, if you experience it like this and there, that could be something that the whole transformation needs a little bit of readjustment?
I had a nice, I think, a nice story from last week. At the customer side, we were discussing about a logic, a pricing logic in a company, and with the ambition in the new template that pricing over two companies that merged should be harmonized. And they were having, and we are in the middle of the project. It's 2/3 of the design and build phase have been passed, and we are starting early summer with the first integration test for the company-wide new template. And they are struggling in the current environment with pricing. And then there was a discussion if we could adjust the pricing in the part of the company that is struggling currently. And if we just take the thing that we defined in the new template, and if we kind of downgrade it to the current ECC environment, because the new template already solves the solution. And then there was a discussion going forward and back, what the impact of the project might be and so on. The responsible process owner then said, and we had a steer call, hey guys, this won't be possible to do, because imagine if I now go and adjust the pricing on a global scale in the ECC environment, this won't be digestible for the organization at all, because we will change then pricing in the current environment. For 1/3 of the company, I couldn't manage that change. And this is for me, this early warning signal. Well, what is the message now that we are talking about? The message is the process owner itself didn't feel capable to roll a new pricing out to 1/3 of the company in the current environment. At the same time, we are defining a whole new pricing for the whole company. And how should this then be rolled out in a big bang environment when we do not feel ourselves, or when the company does not feel comfortable rolling out a new pricing on the 1/3 of the company? And this is this kind of early warning signal. And of course, we were starting discussing the project approach, because the change amount is multiple the amount in a global big bang afterwards than we are now facing in this one single pricing situation.
That's a good point, because you always stumble upon these kind of situations where you think like, okay, if that's already a problem, what should happen later? Will it just be better if you postpone it, or if you put it together with the complexities of a go live, of a transition at that point? That's a fantastic.
And if we talk about later is not then in 10 years. Later is on some month if the test has been done.
Yeah, exactly.
Later is tomorrow. This is what I wanted to say with that.
Absolutely. Talking about later, imagine some companies who already have done their move to S4HANA. They may have called it transformation, they may have called it like migration and so on, but they are already running. There is a considerable point of or considerable amount of companies having done that. What's also considerable is the amount of companies who moved there and just saw this as a technical slim lean migration or whatever. So we are now at that point where you have a customer who already has done that, let's say, typical SAP narrative, like move to the new technology and so on, but does not really have any really benefits out of that on the business side, on the business scale. So quite often also comes into to the play that with the go live of the new solution after, for example, a lean migration, after a brownfield, with the go live, everybody's going back to business. Like, project is gone now and so on. Let's work like this for the next years. So you feel at first the feeling of underwhelmment with many customers after these kinds of migrations. And you are now in the position that you have, of course, to bring the energy back up again to make really transformations happening after that kind of technical transformation. How do you see this situation? Is this something where, say, as this is typical, this happens very often, and if there's on the business side somebody who says, we've touched the IT stuff, now we have to touch the business stuff, this is something which is absolutely common and easy achievable? Or do you say like, maybe there has been an opportunity lost and so on, and we probably have to move a little bit back to make that package up again and talk about how we can move to the next steps, move to the next plateau without really losing any momentum there.
So the situation is often the following. The companies do have a bucket list still, leftovers from the transformation project itself, or a business that is requiring new functions, features, process setup. The market currently, also for our customer companies, is quite agile. And there is always new requirements that need to be embedded, leveraged, whatever. So we do have, of course, also possibilities with process analysis that we are doing often with Signavia, other tools, to figure out improvement potentials, to even fill the bucket lists more, or to kind of prioritize the bucket list. Sometimes there are topics on the list that just not make sense or not bring in value. So this is the one topic. There's another unfortunate situation that I'm facing often, and this is we call it transformation capabilities, where companies did not use the transformation project to leverage them. What is it about? It's kind of a consulting buzzwording, but it's quite easy to explain it. So companies during S4 transformation really change processes. There's a need to test processes end to end. There's also a need to document processes, tool-based. There is a necessity to have trainings during the S4 transformations. So, and all those are skills, capabilities that you would need also then to leverage the topics on the bucket list, to define small, smart projects with which you could really in a smart way bring value to the business by having small projects that are just of running like standards. And this is only possible if companies used the S4 transformations to work on the capability. So to have the test management defined, to have a library of test cases that could be used also for the follow-up projects, to have an idea how trainings are done on a global scale, to have a key user network established again. So topics that we were talking anyways already 20 years ago that kind of as time went by got forgotten. But now this is the chance, and this is what I would call out to the community. If you do big transformation programs, this is all your value enabling thing to take care for your transformation capabilities, like establishing a test management, with test automation, with test factory approaches, at least with a test case library that you could use then also for the small, probably smaller post projects that are bringing value. And this is a thing, and this is what is sometimes just forgotten or what is not being seen as bringing big value to the companies.
When we talk about these kind of transformations and we think maybe in the future, all these kinds of steps, which are at the moment, maybe let's say the annoying part of it, the long taking part of it, the cleaning part and so on, may in the future be done much earlier, much easier too by, for example, agentic AI in that case, because there's no podcast possible without not talking about AI today. Of course, the whole industry that we are existing in is at the moment in a little bit of insecurity, how this will evolve, how the big OEMs of the software will cope with the AI demand with their system, but of course, how the consultant of the future will work with AI. There are already some, if you look, for example, at certain articles or posts and so on, some people and companies experiencing, there is no need for junior consultants anymore because all of that is now done with AI. Do you agree with these kinds of, let's say, statements in that way? Because we are not at the moment working that way, that we do not need junior consultants anymore. I don't see this at all at the moment. But how do you think in the, let's say, next 12, 18, maybe let's say 24 months, our discipline, our industry in the consulting business will evolve?
And this is quite my subjective view to so my view to that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of information out and different opinions, and it's hard to really get an overall opinion, or probably not possible. But how do I see these whole things? So personally, I'm really looking forward to the time where we could make more use of AI as we are already doing. And already today, AI is a day-to-day topic, and there's really a lot of support coming from the AI. If we are entering RFP processes or if we are delivering proposals currently and customers are comparing proposals, there's also a lot of crazy stuff, what other companies are offering and concepts that are not proven so far and big ideas, what is not working now. I do see AI quite easily and different topics. The one perspective is usage of AI in business processes. And I was talking earlier, this podcast about the CBS8, what is just a help tool to generate transactional data from different print, email, whatever information. And this is a small tool that everybody could use. This will not embed a big change, but help a lot and save just capacity in companies. So this is the one thing, usage of AI in the business processes of companies. And I think there's a lot of solutions out that could be used. The other perspective is usage of AI to improve projects, to make projects faster, to generate more values out of the project and so on. And this is where I personally do see AI as a colleague being with me in the team, like an agent or 1,000 of agent, all well educated, coming with a master in different disciplines. But what a colleague also needs is kind of a method, an idea, an overall idea of the project, an overall idea of the transformation story of the project, an overall idea of the disciplines where what we are having in the project. And if we do have the structure and if we are leading the project, we could make a lot of use of agents to support what we are doing there in test management, to generate test cases, in kind of functional work streams to leverage a best practice for a certain project process requirement and so on. This is where we could use it. But what we need, nevertheless, we need a leading people that are leading project, that are leading functional streams, that are leading supporting streams, and giving a direction and figuring out if the solution that is offered is valuable or not. So this is how
Absolutely.
I see AI, and I not supposing that AI will one day do projects on their own.
Absolutely. And I think where it really, really does great work is, in any transformation, you have these kinds of, let's say, annoying activities that nobody really likes. And because there's no real business case behind it, like this kind of ABAP cleanups and all this stuff, like which costs money, costs time, it prolongs your timetable, but it's always difficult to do. And I think when those things are done by agentic AI, and there are great startups and great agents out there already who can help with that, nobody really is crying about this. Yeah, that we can concentrate purely on the value delivering stuff. But of course, I can understand anybody who is at the moment young in their university and may think like these kind of projects, these kinds of industries is really interesting, but are now, of course, a little bit frightened. So what would be your message to them? Which kind of skills they should train themselves on and they should concentrate themselves on to be in a good position for a professional start in a career like this in our industry?
Yeah. So the message is we don't need to train AI skills. So young people that are starting their career in CBS do have AI skills, probably more than as some of us are having, because the master thesis, whatever, already has been done with a lot of AI support. What is nevertheless important are the same skills and the same knowledge we are having. So the one thing is real functional business skills and experiences. So knowing how companies are working and functioning, knowing what the value drivers in companies are. This is what people need to know, and this is what people need to gain experience. The question is, what is the new way to do it? And another thing, and this is for me is always 50 part of being consultant, is this empathy. So this ability to think in persons, to figure out, okay, what is the decisions this management has to do and what are their drivers, and to try to be empathic and to try to get real good answers of what they need to do. And this is not what an AI could deliver. And those are the skills that the good consultants need to head out for and be good at.
Perfect. Looking at the time, thank you very much first for this very interesting conversation. When people want to get into contact you or meet you, talk with you and so on, I know that your calendar is full of events and all the stuff where you've been or where you're going to be in the next 6 months, for sure at the Sapphire, for example, but where are other possibilities for people to meet and talk with you?
Yeah, for sure at LinkedIn always. And I'm always open to personal conversation. There's always good result of it, and it's interesting. I will be the Sapphire in May. I will be for sure be at the OneCon. This is the CBS event happening early July, and somewhere out in the community. So just get in contact. This is the easy answer.
Perfect. The link to your LinkedIn profile will be definitely in the show notes. And I definitely thank you for this conversation. I'm looking already forward to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex, for hosting that, and looking forward.